Welcome to Drafting Out Loud, where we're trying to get better every day. We don't know it all, definitely, but we're trying to get better every day. And today we're going to be looking at the underdog market movers, maybe a little bit of a change compared to before. Again, just trying to come up with a plan before our drafts and trying to get better every day. First, we're looking at the underdog platform values. And these values are not that exciting on underdog. That being said, I think that targeting Parker Washington and then David Montgomery are smart bets on underdog because they are going so much cheaper compared to DraftKings. I understand why they're going cheaper. There are some more high profile YouTubers that are fans of Parker Washington, others that are not. And so I think you just want to take some when you can, when you get a value. I wouldn't be pulling them up, but I would be taking him around this 71. I did see him go in someone else's draft later than 71. I think it was the 80s, if I'm not mistaken, or late 70s. So if you can get him at a value, so you're not trying to like drive up his ADP any further, but you're trying to just get some of him at a good price relative to other sites, I do think it makes sense. There's a lot of risk, but maybe there's some reward because he did do pretty darn great towards the end of the year. David Montgomery's rising. I think he's even rising underdog. We'll see on the next slide. But if you can get him here in the 70s, maybe there's still some, meat on the bone. If you're drafted on DraftKings at 58, there's probably really no meat on the bone, and there's probably like a lot more risk versus the reward at 58, considering DraftKings is a PPR site, and David Montgomery isn't really a PPR running back. He can catch a pass, but he's definitely not a PPR running back. You can see here actually looking at the risers, David Montgomery is a riser. Also, actually, he's fallen. He's risen for the week. He's fallen since the previous day. So some of that steam is maybe out on David Montgomery on underdog. So you can probably try to get him around the 73 or maybe even see him fall a bit more. You don't need to overdraft David Montgomery like you might some of these other players. For example, DJ Moore is still going earlier and earlier. Luther Burden's going earlier and earlier. Kyler Murray is a mixed bag. It looks like he's kind of stabilizing, but he's gone up 9% in the last week. Devonta Smith is rising because A.J. Brown might be on the move. Mike Washington, the steam's finally being let out here. He rose like 20% if you were to take over 20% if you were to look at things from a couple days before a week ago, so like a week and a half ago. But you're probably seeing him getting drafted in like the 140s a lot. I think I've seen him get drafted in the 130s. Odunze's rising still because of the fallout from the DJ Moore trade. Now, this is the one that I think I'm changing my tune on a little bit now. Again, just trying to get better here. I do think Tyler Algier makes sense. Just thinking about where he could go if he goes to the right team. Now, breaking news, there's one less right team for him to go to. Kenneth Walker just signed with, or is going to sign with the Chiefs. So that's one less landing spot for him. As things become more clear, you might find out that, the hundreds is the right place for Tyler Algier, but if he finds the right spot, he might rise a lot. So I do think you're trying to find the player that, while they might be expensive for the unknown, it might be a cheap price if he signs in the right place. I think I need to take more Tyler Algier if I can get him around this, pick 90 or something like that, I think. Jordan Mason's rising just because Aaron Jones is gone. And 126 is a lot nicer of a price compared to 91. That being said, there might be more value for Tyler Algier if he finds the right spot. While Jordan Mason, he might lose value depending on what Minnesota does in the running back room. The other players on here that I think that I put down at the bottom are Chris Godwin and James Conner. James Conner just re-signed with Arizona, and so I kind of expected him to start rising a little bit, maybe since people know what's going on with him, and he is rising a little bit. You can see he's actually the biggest riser here on the second biggest riser on the list for the last day. And all that rise has been in the last day, you can see. So he hasn't risen for the week yet. So this is your chance to get him before he starts rising up more, probably. So I think James Conner's probably a really good target. And Godwin just got caught in the middle there. He's risen up some over the past couple days. I think that's maybe because there's more and more clarity that Evans probably isn't returning, which means Godwin probably has a role on, all downs versus only on certain downs, or less target competition basically. That also maybe means other Tampa Bay receivers are of should be rising a little bit too, possibly. So I do think there's some good targets here on this list. The biggest targets at this point in time are probably David Montgomery, Tyler Algier, Jordan Mason. I think Godwin and Connor, where they're going as well, are the biggest targets on this list. I don't mind the other players, but I think some of them are screaming up the board a little bit too much based on um, what's expected of them. Uh, I think I'd rather have, and the last thing on here, I think it's hard to draft Luther Burden if he goes too early, which he's going in the third round now. I don't want to have zero of them, so I'll definitely probably draft him at some point in time. But it's really hard to even make stacks. Caleb Williams is going higher than he probably should be. And there's a lot of competition because you got Luther Burden, Roma Dunze, and then you got Loveland on the tight end side as well. I think it's nicer if you can get two of them and probably two below ADP if possible. And here are the fallers. This is a new one that I wanted to look at. And I think the player that you want to, these are probably the players you want to avoid right now, or the top 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, probably 6 on this list are the ones you probably want to avoid the most. Um, if you just want to try to get ADP value. I've seen Stefon Diggs go in the 120s in limited drafts. I don't think he's bad here. You could take him, but realize that you might be able to get some better ADP value if you just keep on letting him fall a bit more. There's a lot of concern with Scatabo, and a lot of concern with Harvey. I've been thinking about Harvey, like if he does get a running mate, does he fall? If he doesn't get a running mate, does he rise? I don't know what happens with him. I feel like if they don't sign someone, I guess he probably rises. And if they do sign someone, he probably falls. And they're probably going to find someone to run with him. So I do think this is a scary price right now. Mixon's falling because he's probably not going to play. Woody Marks now has a running mate that's expected to get more of the touches than David Montgomery. And then Denzel Boston, I would just take note that he's been consistently just falling a little bit. I don't know if it was at the beginning of this whole thing, if he was pick 100 or low or better, or around pick 100, but now he's just falling slowly as people aren't as excited for him. So I think we want to avoid these players unless we can get good value. And I think we want to target Tyler Algier and maybe some running backs that are similar to him that might get a good landing spot potentially. That being said, the Chiefs again are not a landing spot anymore. With that, we're going to try to jump into a draft and check me out on that one if you want to. See you on the next one. Peace.